Welcome. This is Ancient Wisdom for a Modern World. I am your host, Jim Phillips. It is through the application of ancient wisdom in our modern world that we gain a greater understanding and experience of the truth of who we are. Never has there been a time in the history of humanity when there's a greater need to understand this truth. And it is this truth that will set us free. Before I begin today's episode, I want to invite you to subscribe to the Ancient Wisdom for a Modern World podcast at sacredstoriesmedia.com, where you can also listen to inspirational messages by my Sacred Stories colleagues. Additionally, if you'd like more information about my work and my message, and of course free downloads, please visit my personal website at www.livinginfullexpression.com. And lastly, I'm excited to announce that my book, The Key to Life, is now fully available through sacredstoriespublishing.com, amazon.com, and booksellers across the world. And now for today's episode. Life is perfect, despite evidence to the contrary. Now, I have to say that this quote is one that raises eyebrows every time that I share it with somebody. In fact, I just got back from an expo where I participated in speaking, but also in selling my book, and I had this as a poster. And I had people walk by and they would shake their heads, and I would ask them why they would shake their heads. And they would say things like, well, it might be perfect for everybody, but it's not perfect for me. Life isn't unfolding basically the way that they felt it should or the way that they would like it to. But the truth is that life is perfect. Nothing can happen if it isn't perfect. Nothing can happen, nothing can be experienced if the conditions for it are not perfect. Therefore, life is perfect, despite evidence to the contrary. What I want to speak about today is the cycle of life. And life, as I use it in most of my speaking and writing, is the acronym for living in full expression. And so this cycle of life is about what we do, what we go through as we learn to live in full expression of the truth of who we are. I want to share something with you that a lot of people don't necessarily agree with, but it's my understanding and my experience of my own life and really what I believe that we're here to do in human form. We've all been told that we're here to evolve, or that we are evolving spiritual beings. We're evolving into our spiritual beingness, if you will. Well, I don't believe we're here to evolve. I don't believe that we are becoming something other than what we are, which is really what the definition of evolve is, to become something other than what something originally was. I believe we're here to experience and express who we are, who we always have been, and who we always will be. Now, I know that most are going to say, no, we're here evolving. Well, my point is, though, that we do not become that which we already are. What we're doing is we're experiencing all that we are as we remember who we are through the experiences that we create. And I want to be very, very clear about that. Experiences we create specifically for that purpose. Here's what's happened. We bought into and we actually perpetuate this idea of separation from God or all that is or from the divine, when in truth, what we're separated from is our awareness of this truth, that we are in fact an aspect of the divine. So what I believe we're doing through each incarnation is expanding our awareness, or better put, our remembrance of self, and therefore our experience and expression of self as an aspect of the divine. Now, several years ago, I had this poem, if you will. I don't know that it's necessarily a poem because it doesn't rhyme, but it's a poem of sorts. And it just came to me at one point in time, and it was another definition of who I am, or who any of us are. And I just wanted to share that to you right now, because I do believe that it addresses this idea of evolving, or in my opinion, our not evolving, but our becoming more aware of the truth of who we are. I am who I am, always have been and will be. Who I am is who I am and will not change. It is who I believe myself to be that changes to reflect who I am, so I am who I am. The more aware we become of who we are and always have been, the grander our experience and expression of self. And it's within this expansion process that we move through what I believe are 4 phases of experience and expression during each lifetime on the earth plane. These 4 phases represent our different levels of understanding based on who we are and where we are along our respective life's path, or what I have come to call our sojourn. And just as a reminder, a sojourn, that's spelled S-O-U-L-J-O-U-R-N, a sojourn is each incarnation we have in human form. And it's a combination of the word soul, which is our divine nature, and journ, which is for journal. But it's also from the word sojourn, which means just a short or temporary stay. So what I look at sojourn as is just each life we live in a short stay by our divine nature, which is our soul, in human form on this planet. The 4 phases of the life cycle are reflection, revelation, reconciliation, and resurrection. Now, I believe that we can experience all 4 phases several times in a single lifetime, or we can experience them once over a complete lifetime. We can also experience all 4 as they're spread out over the course of several lifetimes. I believe that how quickly we move through the 4 phases is dependent upon the experiences and expression of ourselves that our soul desires and that we choose to have during each incarnation. And I think that once you read the description of each phase, you might question how we can move through all phases multiple times in one lifetime, especially if the final phase is resurrection. It would seem that after resurrection, a soul's journey is complete and it ascends. What you're going to discover is that each cycle expands upon the previous cycle, with each cycle resulting in a grander experience and expression of self than the previous one. So here are the 4 phases in more detail, beginning with reflection. Reflection is the questioning phase. It's when we question why things are the way they are, why we are the way we are, or why things happen the way that they do. We begin to question the purpose and meaning of events in our personal lives, as well as events around the world. We question our beliefs about life, and more specifically, about ourselves. We question our life's purpose and why it's so difficult to define that purpose, much less live it. We even question if we have a life purpose. We reflect or question why it seems that others have what we desire, but for some reason we do not or cannot have those same experiences. It's also in this reflection phase that we begin to notice our limiting beliefs. And we notice that we hold on to them and that they have been preventing us from living in full expression and experience of ourselves. We question our relevance and our purpose. It's also in this phase that we consider how we individually and collectively might fit into divine design and the perfection of all things. Reflection causes us to consider where we are in life in comparison to where we thought we would be at any particular moment. Now, I want to make sure everybody understands that reflection is not about right or wrong, good or bad. It's merely the acknowledgement of what has been and what is to this moment. It's during the reflection phase that we begin to consider our life experiences without judgment and recognize they are just that, life experiences. We begin to realize that our history doesn't determine who we are or what we can do. It's merely a cataloging, if you will, of who we were, what we believed, and what we experienced as a result of our beliefs and subsequent choices in each moment. And reflection is the key that opens the door to revelation, the second phase of the cycle of life. And revelation is the phase in which we recognize life doesn't have to continue in the way that it has to this moment. There is always a choice. So here we're going to look at revelation. And again, revelation is the phase in which we begin to experience more of the truth of who we are. We gain a deeper understanding and meaning of the purpose of life, our reason for being. And even though we might gain awareness during the phase of reflection, it's in the phase of revelation that our awareness becomes more expansive. We become more aware of who we are in relation to life and all of creation. We begin to gain an understanding of the power within us to consciously create our life experiences as we desire them to be. We begin to gain an understanding that we have in fact been creating our life experiences all along. We accept that we always have a choice to change who we believe ourselves to be and to change what we are experiencing, regardless of one's life circumstances. It's also during the phase of revelation that we begin to take responsibility for our life experiences. We become consciously aware of the correlation between our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings and how our life unfolds. We begin to see and accept our connection to the divine and all that is. Now we get to the third phase, and that is reconciliation. And this is the phase in which we accept our expanded knowledge and experience of who we know ourselves to be. Our awareness continues to expand, and therefore our knowledge and acceptance of who we are continues to expand. We gain a greater understanding of our place in the universe and our purpose for living in human form on the earth plane. It's during this phase that we have begun to more consciously experience and express the integration of our spiritual aspect with our human aspect. Now, even though these two aspects of self have always been present within us, it's the activation of these two aspects of self now functioning as one. We accept the truth of how powerful we are, of who we are, and we create new, more desired life experiences from this knowing. And we consciously exercise the power of the choice to live in and from the truth of who we know we are. And then we get to the final phase, and that's the phase of resurrection. And resurrection is our rising up from the metaphorical death of our previous expression of self that we experience as we move through this four-phase process. The resurrected or enhanced expression and experience of self in our lived reality is a result of the expanded knowledge and awareness gained through the experiences of the other three phases. Resurrection is the integration phase in which we more fully experience and express our divinity as we come to know it in that moment. We actually come back to life. We consciously live in full expression and experience of who we are in every moment. We trust and we live from the knowledge of who we are. We trust life in all of its expressions, knowing its intention is our greater experience and expression of self. We resurrect our experience and expression of self from the illusion of who we thought we were to the experience of who we now know ourselves to be. Resurrection is the knowing that there is not and has never been a separation from the divine. Here's an interesting thought. We cannot be separate from that which we are. So as we move through each of these phases, we do so seamlessly. There isn't a line of demarcation that tells us we've moved from one to another. And in fact, more often than not, it is after we move through a cycle that we become aware of a greater sense of self. And this usually occurs when we're back in the reflection phase and are taking note of who we are and where we are along our life's path. Now, I want you to understand that no one phase is more important than another, as each is integral to the full cycle of life. And again, life, living in full expression. As we move through these four phases and we gain a greater understanding of our true self, we do so through the context of what I refer to as the four pillars of life, which is what I discussed in my last podcast. And these four pillars are unconditional love, non-judgment, forgiveness, and gratitude. And in my opinion, these are the underpinnings of our full expression of the truth of who we are. Listen, being true to oneself and living in full expression of that truth is really all it takes to make a difference in the world. We have a far greater impact on this world and the lives of others than we can possibly imagine. We might not be consciously aware of the difference we make, but because most often it's going to happen through what appear to be random, disconnected events that somehow come together to reach and benefit those for whom it was intended. Here's what I invite you to do. Live in full expression of who you truly are, and the world benefits from this gift of your expression. I want to thank you for your time today. I know you have many opportunities towards which you can invest this precious time, and yet once again you've chosen to spend this time with me. And I really want you to know how greatly I appreciate you doing so. If you have any questions or comments on today's podcast, or if you have a suggestion for a future podcast, please email me at jim@prosperitybydesign.com. I look forward to continuing our conversation as we bring more ancient wisdom into our modern world that will change not only our personal lives, but the world as we know it into a more peaceful, more loving, more kind, and joy-filled experience for all. Until next time, I'm Jim Phillips, and you've been listening to Ancient Wisdom for a Modern World.